So have you had a good day so far? Awesome, I'm going to spoil that for you. I hope there's some red wine at the end of this, you probably need it. But what I want to talk to you about is how to keep both your information safe and how to keep the information that you look after safe. Paul said I've been in this forever, and it's true. I had to look him up in the yearbook because he definitely had a lot more hair back then. But I've been doing security for the last 20 odd years before security was really a thing. So I've got some insight into the problems that all of us are facing. Let's start with where we are today, a realistic view of where security is today. Now, most people probably, I don't know, maybe you guys, but definitely your family and definitely your friends have some weird view that this is the threat that we need to care about. Okay, so this is Kevin Smith in Die Hard 4. It's a terrible movie. But that's the opinion that people have of hackers. That's the opinion that people have as their adversary. And honestly, it's fairly hard to take that seriously. I mean, we've seen the movies, we've seen the TV shows, we've seen that. And if that's the threat we're facing, okay, we're probably all right. Because, you know, the good guys always win in these things and the bad guys explode or something, I don't know. But it just isn't true. It's not only not true, it's almost denial to think that it might be true. So why? Why is this not the problem? And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but information has value. And I don't mean ephemeral value. I don't mean some sort of existential value. I mean actual cash, dollar value. And personal information, even more so. I want to talk to you about 3 specific data breaches that occurred in the last year. Now, previously I might have talked about password breaches. I might have talked about credit card breaches. You know what? Not interesting in 2017. They're just going to happen, but they're not interesting because they're not particularly valuable. What's really valuable is data. So the first one, OPM. OPM is the Office of Personnel Management. This is the US department that looks after all of the personal information for every single person who has a US government clearance. So whether you're in the government, whether you're in the military, whether you're a defence contractor, you've provided OPM with your entire life history. Now, I've gone through the clearance process in Australia. This requires me to state everywhere I've ever been for my whole life, everywhere my parents have ever been for their whole life, everything that I've ever been a member of for my whole life, all of my personal details, the most unbelievably detailed personal information. OPM held all of this for everyone who had a US government clearance. OPM lost all of this. All of it. Now, it is alleged, because I get to say it is alleged when we're recording things, that it was stolen by the Chinese government. Now, this is the job of nation states, is to find the information out of other nation states. But that means the Chinese government knows every single person and every detail about every person who has access to sensitive information in the US government. All of it. And it's one thing to say, can you please change your password? I'm sure we've all had that. Okay, please explain, can you please change your fingerprints? Can you please change your date of birth? I've yet to find a way to do that. I'm sure many in the room would go, we could just take a few years off it, it'll be fine. But we don't get that option. This is permanent information, and when it's lost, it's permanently lost. It is likely people lost their lives, or certainly got imprisoned, over the information that was lost from that data breach. All right, the second one, Panama Papers introduces a new verb, doxing. The verb to dox means taking all of your personal information or your corporate information and just putting it on the internet. Now, this is not about trying to blackmail you for it. It's not about trying to do anything for personal benefit. It's just get the information and put it on the internet. Now, the Panama Papers deals with a law firm in Panama called Mossack Fonseca. It is alleged, remember every time I say that? It is alleged that Their main business was setting up trusts and shell companies to protect the assets of the rich and powerful, to shield them from tax laws, to shield them from tax obligations, to shield them from investigation. Somebody took all the information about all of the operations of Monsec Fonseca and just put it on the internet. So if you were one of the rich and powerful, maybe, if you are, come and see me afterwards, I could do with a bit of that. But if you were one of the rich and powerful, your information is now public. You might have seen Emma Watson, star of Harry Potter. She had a trust there. Got in all sorts of trouble trying to defend why this was done. In Australia, the Australian Tax Office expanded Project Wickenby to take all the information from every Australian who was mentioned there and go after them for tax avoidance. There were real financial consequences to this data loss. The third one I want to talk about. In September of last year, the Commonwealth Department of Health said, oops, we accidentally put a whole load of pharmaceutical benefit scheme data about Australians entirely available on a public web server. We didn't mean to, we're sorry. Someone please tell me how we're sorry takes that information back. How does we're sorry compensate you for this? And it doesn't. So in 2013-14, the total losses to cybercrime in Australia were valued at about $1.1 billion. Last year, $4.8 billion. That is money lost to the Australian economy into the hands of criminals. So in 4 years, it's gone up by a factor of 4. There is no reason to assume that it is not going to continue this level of growth. And in case you think that this is the sort of thing that doesn't happen to here, it doesn't happen in Adelaide, it's somebody else's problem. Last October, 3 businesses in South Australia scammed out of $2 million. There's a real monetary value to this information. So I said before that your threat actor is not the dude in the basement. So who is the threat actor? Who are we really supposed to be cared about? We'll start with governments. And that's a scary thought. But nation states are doing this all the time. And if you work in government, I know a lot of you do, then there are foreign nation states who are interested in the information that you look after. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter that you can't imagine why they are. We call this the defense of lack of imagination. I can't imagine why anyone would want my stuff, so I don't need to protect it. Just assume that somebody wants your stuff, whatever it is, however mundane it is, however uninteresting you think it is, somebody wants it. And somebody will go to some level of access to take it from you. Now this definitely happens. The second group that we need to care about are corporations. We don't just mean Australian corporations, although that definitely happens as well, but corporations in other countries who want to compete for your business, for your clients. They will steal your information. We need to care about activists. This is largely dependent on the industry you're in. And again, I looked at the sign-in sheet. If there were people here from the coal-fired power sector, then activists really matter, because in the past they'd go and chain themselves up on gates. Now they come and steal your information and publicly disclose it. Now they come and stop you doing your business. It's a lot safer, it's a lot cheaper, and they don't have to be on site, and they won't get arrested. Now, the fourth one is the script kiddies. That's the dude in the basement. All right, they're really there. They really exist. But if you spend any time focusing on them and not focusing on the other 3, you're going to be utterly blindsided by the other 3 when they turn up and knock on your door. So an obvious question about this is, if this is such a big deal, and if I'm not just here to scare you on a Friday afternoon, then what's the government doing about it? Love that thought. Well, the government has a strategy. Now, strategies are good. I'm not actually mocking this one. The Prime Minister earlier this year released Australia's first cyber security strategy. It's a 50-page, mostly white space document. I recommend you download and read it. It's worth having a look at. It is an inspirational document and it is an aspirational document. It's something that we should do and something that we want to do. And the key headlines are a national cyber partnership. Government has realised they can't do this alone. They need help from organisations like mine, but also organisations like yours. They need to secure the cyber defences so we're not leaking money to criminals. We want to be a global player. We want to maintain growth and innovation because that's always been Australia's forward. And we want to be a cyber smart nation. Lovely ideas. I want to take one of those and I want to actually read it to you. This is what the cyber security strategy says about strong cyber defences. It says Australia's networks and systems will be increasingly resilient to attack and hard to compromise. We will better detect, deter and respond to cybersecurity threats and better anticipate risks. Who wouldn't get behind that? It's a great idea. So, where are we? How close are we to that? Well, let's just say we got a long, long way to go. This chart shows the prevalence of different security attacks on Australian business. This comes from the 2015 ACSC, that's the federal government cybersecurity folk, and a review they did of Australian business. Don't worry about the detail, worry about the shape. You'll notice on there that there are 3 bars at the very top that are way longer than all the other bars. Here's the thing to note about that. If you take the same report from 2012, so 3 years before, none of those 3 appeared on it. Not one. They weren't a thing. In 2012, we cared about stealing passwords and stealing credit cards. We don't care about that anymore. The criminals are way, way ahead. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you about a couple of those because they directly impact on me and they directly impact on you and they directly impact on the information you hold. The first one is ransomware. Now, I did not add this after the events of last weekend. How many people heard of WannaCry? Yeah. How many people could honestly say they put their hand up and they've heard of ransomware this week but hadn't heard of it last week? Okay, that's not too bad. Good, there's some consciousness about it. Because it hasn't been a big thing. Again, 3 years ago, this wasn't a thing. 3 years ago, criminals were stealing credit cards because they were valuable. Nowadays, if I took my credit card, one of the credit cards out of my pocket, and I scanned it with some of the cool technology you just heard and attached it to my Twitter account, you know how much that's worth to a criminal? About $10. That's it. It's not worth any more than $10. Because by the time someone has used it, the credit card company or the bank will have detected the fraud, will have stomped on it, will have refunded me the money, and then issued me a new card, and probably said, please don't put it on Twitter again, but you know, probably. But it's not worth any money. So if I want to steal $1 million, remember 2 million stolen from SA businesses in October, I have to steal 100,000 credit card numbers, and then I've got to find a way of putting a small purchase on every one of 100,000 credit cards, and then I've got to somehow turn that into actual cash. I mean, it's great that I could go down to Coles and buy some bananas with a credit card and get away with it. It's fairly hard to monetize that. Ransomware is the replacement. That is why it's the #1 attack that criminals are doing today. Something like 40% of Australian businesses were hit with a ransomware attack in the last 12 months. That's a staggering number. More importantly, about 20% of those businesses that were hit with ransomware ceased operation for somewhere between a week and forever. This is an attack which can just kill your business stone dead, and there is no coming back from it. How does this work? Somebody clicks on a link. All of these start with somebody clicks on a link. And I know, go on, laugh, because you'd never do that. Yes, you would. You absolutely would. Now, when they click on this link, a piece of bad code is downloaded to their computer, and what it does is it starts encrypting, that is, locking all of the documents and all of the files on their computer, and all of the attached drives, and all of the network shares and everything else on the computer. And then when it's finished, it pops up a message. Now, this AFP email on the right here, this is a genuine email that was sent that has a ransomware link in it. Now imagine you, as an ordinary person at home, not a records management professional, but an ordinary person at home, gets this thing which looks remarkably like the AFP is telling me I've got to go to court. What? What did I do? I didn't do anything. And I've just got to click this link to find out the details about it. That level of scare works. The reason that this is done is because it works. And it might be easy to go, I'd never click on that link. How about clicking on the link from AGL? There is a new one going out right now that is identical to a current AGL digital bill. Absolutely identical. I get AGL digital bills. I'm fine with clicking on the link on the AGL bill that says, give me the PDF of my bill. Well, the bad guys are sending out something which looks absolutely identical to that, only the link don't take you to a PDF of your bill. It takes you to horror and pain. Now, if you don't use AGL as a provider, sure, you go, yeah, delete, not interesting. But if you are expecting to get an email like that, and you get an email like that, then you'll click on the link. So it's easy to think you won't, but you will. And then you get one of these. Now this really is the image that turned up out of WannaCry. You got 3 days to pay about $300 and maybe you'll get your files back. And if you don't pay within 3 days, it's doubled. It's now $600 to pay within a week and maybe you'll get your files back. And if you go past a week, you've lost them, they're gone forever. And I'm sure that you're going to say, but we got backups. Backups are fine. Well, backups are fine as long as they are disconnected backups. Now, I'm going to talk to you for you at home more than you at work here. If you do a backup by plugging in a USB drive to your computer and copying all the files over there, that's not a backup because it will encrypt your computer and then it will encrypt your USB drive. If you want to do real backups, it's you do a backup and you disconnect the drive and you stick it somewhere. And then when you want to do another one, you plug it back in. And I'm sure a bunch of you are going to go, how? I got cloud. I got Google Drive or something, iDrive, Dropbox. I put all my files in there. That's not a backup. So I teach you nothing out of this. Cloud is not a backup. It's replication, it's convenient, it's distributed, it's awesome in all those regards, but it's not a backup because if I encrypt the file on your desktop, it instantly encrypts the one in the cloud as well, and you lose that as well. And more importantly, the bad guys are smart. These are not dumb criminals. Getting this code to work consistently, functionally, is a lot of software engineering. So the latest ones they've got, encrypt all your files, and they do it in a really clever way that you can still use them while they're encrypted because there's a bit of software in the background keeping them available to you, and they wait a month. So they wait till all of your backups, all your offline backups are also encrypted, then they chuck this at you. Because now your backups don't work. So this really happens. This happened to the National Health Service in the UK last weekend. Again, people died because of this. The NHS turned away people for non-critical surgery last weekend. There was critical surgery that couldn't happen last weekend because of this. This information has value in human lives. So who gets targeted by this stuff? We'll start with anyone who's got high levels of access. So best people that get targeted with this are things like, executives. And nobody's going to agree with me here when I say executives set rules and then fail to follow them themselves. No one's ever going to believe that happens. They're surprisingly soft targets. Anyone with access to time-critical data, information that has to be there today, like in health service, the results of your tests. It doesn't matter they'll be available off a backup I can pull back in a week's time. They need to be there now. But the honest answer is anyone, everyone, both at home and at work. Now the reason that I'm making a big point about this, and this is the reason that people aren't stealing credit cards anymore, is because this works. Total losses reported in the last year globally were something, for just this sort of attack, were in the hundreds of billions. I have this interesting prediction, and I spoke to some police about it and they disagree, but this prediction that governments are eventually going to declare that they've won the war on drugs because this is more profitable for the criminals. You don't have to do production, you don't have to ship it, you don't have to split it, you don't have to worry about arrest. You can just make all your money this way. All right, that's ransomware. It's a real thing. It's a big deal. The other one is spearfishing. This is 2 of the 3 that were in that list. Average cost to an Australian business of a spearfishing attack, $1.6 million. How many Australian businesses do you think have a spare $1.6 million in the bank that they can just burn to get past this? Hint, very few. That's why they go out of business. You get an attack, it takes you out. The total cost to resolve it is going to be in the millions. You don't have millions, bye. That's it, game over. Now this is really different from, for example, if you had a fire. If your office burned down, you just go to your insurance company and go, office burned down, please pay out on the policy, we'll have a new office, everything will be fine. There's no useful cyber insurance. There is cyber insurance, it does exist. It is, you can buy a policy. I am not endorsing the purchase of policies because I've read a number of them and I don't think they pay out. When you read the terms of them, one of them was great. It said, this policy will not cover any event related to electromagnetic radiation. I mean, I'm not sure how they think the computers work. I mean, fine, if your Etch-a-Sketch fails, it'll cover it. But that really was worded into a cyber insurance policy. It's just not going to pay. So how does it work? How does spearfishing work? Now, unlike the previous one, where we just send out this scam thing to a lot of people and assume that somebody will click it, this works on knowing about you specifically as an individual. The previous one is spread wide in the hope someone clicks. This one, they will investigate you. They will do Google searches for you. They will do social media searches for you. They will find out your name, where you work, who your friends are, who you work with, what your interests are, because trust me, all of this stuff is fairly easy to determine for anybody. I don't know if people know, you can do a reverse image search. You put your own photo into a Google search, it'll find other places that you appear. Most people don't know you can do it, but you can. So we can start with a photo of someone and get practically everything about their life. Now, if I'm a bad guy and I want to do this, I find out about you as a specific individual. And then I send you specifically one email. And this email contains something utterly, utterly plausible for you to open. It will know who you are. It will talk in a language you'd understand. It might even appear to come from one of your friends, one of your co-workers, something like that. The aim here, again, is to get you to click on a link or open an attachment and get infected. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, hey, but yeah, we got antivirus. We're okay with that. Nope. Antivirus is terrific against defending against yesterday's problems. It doesn't actually defend against today's problems. The reason for that is because in part of the reconnaissance, the bad guys will know what antivirus product you use. That's actually fairly easy to determine. And then they will have a copy of that antivirus product. And then they will test their attack and keep tweaking it until your antivirus product doesn't detect it. And then they'll send it to you. And tomorrow, it'll probably get detected, but that's too late. It will get through. Now, the first one locks up all of your files. The first one blackmails you for your files. This one is much more insidious and much more subtle. What this sort of attack does is it takes over your computer and allows the attacker to actively use your computer just like you sitting in front of it. So anything that you can do, they can do. Anything that you do, they can see. When you log into your bank, they can see what your bank is and what your username is and what your password is. And see how much money you've got in each of your accounts to determine if you're interesting. when you send emails to your co-workers, friends and family, they will know who your co-workers, friends and family are, and they're using your computer. So now they can send emails to your co-workers, friends and family as you. What they'll also do is they'll see if there are any ways to expand their ability to be more than just you and take over from your computer to your network to your entire business. And in most organisations, this isn't particularly difficult. Now they're doing it to steal either your personal information or, more importantly, to try financial transactions that are way above the level they could have got away with before. So who's targeted with this? Basically the same people. Senior execs, IT folk, people who act with the public. And these people with the public are the really interesting ones from our point of view. So we do these sort of tests for businesses. People engage us to be the bad guys and work out whether you're vulnerable to these. That last one is your HR department, your freedom of information department. The reason that's really interesting is because I bet every single one of you works in a place that has a policy that says don't click on links from people you don't know, never open attachments from people you don't know. Explain to me how this works in your HR department. Dear HR manager, I think your company is awesome. I would like to apply for a job with you. Here is my CV. Love, Phil. Somebody will open that because it's their job to open that, notwithstanding any other policy you have. They'll open that. Only that thing won't be my CV. Or maybe it'll be really subtle. It'll be both my CV and some malware at the same time. Or, and this one works too, this one works even better. You go, I know you take security seriously and probably wouldn't accept my CV as an attachment, so I've put it on my website. Please click here for it. That works. Astonishingly, that works. Now, this week, I've just flown back from Sydney because this week I was working with one of our clients who had exactly this happen, and the criminals were trying to steal about $75,000 by changing the bank details on invoices. They came very, very close to making it work. So we've gone from, I want to steal your credit card worth tens of dollars, to I want to blackmail you for information for hundreds of dollars, to I want to get into your systems, learn how it works, learn who's important, learn who can authorize transactions, and then subtly modify them for tens of thousands of dollars. And just to put this in real context, Facebook and Google got taken for this sort of scam to the tune of, wait for it, $100 million last year. Somebody set up some fake companies in Europe somewhere that had the same names as their actual suppliers in Taiwan and just changed the details. And amazingly it worked. $100 million lost. That's why credit cards aren't, my credit card doesn't have a $100 million limit, perhaps yours is different. Okay, so that's the world. That is the world we live in. That is the honest truth about the world we live in. Now, sky's not falling. Look, it's bright, sunny. It is worth saying that we do live in the most profitable world that we've ever had. We do live in the safest world that we have ever had. Those are two really good things. But we also live in the most connected world that we've ever had. And previously, if the criminals wanted to attack you, they needed to be local. They needed to be in the same city or state or somewhere near, or have associates in those places to attack you. But this is not true today. There have been repeated Eastern European crime gangs attacking Australia for years. They continue to do so. These people have never set foot in this country. It is unlikely they would ever get prosecuted, even if you knew exactly who they were. So the criminals are now able to act almost with impunity because they know that even if you found out who they were, I mean, how many people from, there's someone from Sapol, because I saw it on the list, how many people from Sapol speak Romanian? Probably not very many. Awesome. Well done. There we go. So, but the idea that you could call up someone in another country, even if you could find the right person, how would they validate you're the right person to talk to? Doesn't work. So, how do we manage the professional information? We see this as fundamentally a governance problem. security looks a bit like a technology problem, but it isn't. Technology has certainly facilitated it and given us a lot of benefits along with it, along with these bunch of problems, but fundamentally it's a governance problem. And too long we've been storing information, we've been handling information, but we haven't been managing information. Management's an active process. Storing and handling are not. They're passive processes. Management's active. And we think that an independent view on how well you do this is important. Now, we are certified to ISO 27001 and have been for more than a decade. It's the International Standard for Information Security Management. Not information management, just the security bit. But let's face it, if you're going to trust us with your sensitive information, you should be assured that we're going to look after it properly and that we have processes and technology and people who are all trained, set up, configured and externally audited to say we're doing a good job. It's fairly rare. We think that you should have a bunch of policies on security, on records management, on acceptable use, on. But more importantly, we think you should enforce them. There are a lot of organisations that have policies and they can point to the binder on the shelf when the auditors turn up and go, yep, there's our policy on records management. It's there. Never been opened, last updated 2007. But there's a policy and the auditor goes tick and moves on. Audit compliance is not a reason to do stuff. It doesn't make you safe. I'm amazed it even makes people feel safe. The next area that businesses, and this is where you specifically can help, is on classification. It's my experience that records management people love detail and love structures and hierarchies and multi-dimensional tagging and things. And maybe I'm a bit in the past, but I doubt it. And that's awesome for you. It's not awesome for everyone else because it's too complicated for most people to understand. We think that most organisations that get classification wrong either don't do it at all, there's a lot of that, or do it in a far, far too detailed way. And fundamentally, our experience is there are only really 4 levels of classification that most organisations ever need. Is it public? That is, we're giving it to the world, there is no problem, we intend it for the world. Is it for internal use only? Only for those people within our organisation. We don't make any specific controls around it, but it's okay for us, we don't share it. That said, not a huge loss if we do. New staff member turns up, person leaves, everything is fine. Then we have restricted information that should have some level of control around it. We understand that this is a bit more sensitive, and I'll tell you what we do. In our world, all our client reports would be at that restricted level. They are only for the people working on it and the people who it's for, and nobody else. And we make sure that we put specific controls around, like we don't email those reports around because we don't trust email. And then we have confidential, that top level. That's where you have health records, that's where you have banking and financial records, that's where you have information that, for example, in our organisation, where we keep on each of our employees that we keep just for the purpose of them being an employee. But bank details, partners details, all that sort of stuff. And that pyramid over there, I borrowed from Flinders University, and I thank them for allowing me to rip it off their website. But it makes sense. If you classify stuff, you can now actively manage it. If you don't classify it, you're not managing it, you're just storing it or handling it. The slide deck will be available afterwards. And when we're talking about handling it, this is a combination of people and process and technology. Technology helps us, but it doesn't solve the problem. People do the tasks, but don't solve the problem. And then without a process for how to do it properly, it will be done in an ad hoc fashion. So most organisations make this too hard. They overcomplicate the world. And most organisations underprotect the information that's important. So if you assume that everyone just classifies everything as broadly the same, because most organisations do that, that means the information that really needs to be protected isn't being protected very well. And the information that doesn't need to be protected is being overprotected. So we're spending money in the wrong place. And everybody I know has a limited budget to do this. And so what we're looking for is some level of balance. Also, really importantly, looking for you to be honest about what you do. There's no point having a policy saying we do this thing when you don't do it. There's no point having a procedure that says we follow these steps when you don't do it. Be honest about it. Do what you say and say what you do. I'm fairly big on documentation. I'm fairly big on documented processes. Not ridiculously detailed document processes, but mostly the idea of checklists. It says we always do this thing. But then you can be honest about it. Then you can look at your process and say, is it appropriate? Is it doing the right thing? But most organisations don't even do that. I also want to introduce you to this concept of the 5 no's of cyber. This was developed by Telstra, and it's an awesomely simple and easy to understand thing. If you're going to protect your information personally, professionally, and corporately, you need to be able to answer these 5 questions. The first is, know the value of your data. Both the financial value if it was stolen, but also the cost to replace it if it were lost, or the losses in your business if it were unavailable for a period of time. That's hard. Most people can't do step 1. We have no idea what our information is worth, so how can you now judge whether you're protecting it appropriately? All right, second one, know who has access to your data. And I mean, which individuals, which humans have access to your data. It might be your people, it might be your outsourcers, your suppliers, your partners. Know who can actually get their hands on this stuff. Then, know where it is, physically. This is where cloud gets a bit odd. It's like cloud, I didn't know this. Cloud is an acronym for can't locate our users' data. And sometimes it's true. I stick stuff on my Google Drive. I don't know where that goes. It goes away somewhere. Now, for some organisations, you are not permitted by law to allow information to leave Australia. You should know this. You should know where it is, broadly at least. It's stored in the servers here, at that provider, in that data centre. If you can't know where it is, you don't know who's possibly attacking it. You don't know what your threat model looks like. Then know who's protecting this data. Here's a hint. Nobody. Please don't think your IT teams are protecting the data. They're not. They're making it available to you. They're certainly the custodians of it, but they're not protecting it. Because protecting it requires a business definition of the value of it. You need to have done a business impact assessment, some business continuity planning, and understand what the value of it is to know whether you've got adequate protection. Again, mostly this isn't done. And the final one, you've got to know how well the data is protected. One thing to know who's protecting it, but know how well it's protected. And then that loops back to know the value of your data, because now you can make an assessment of, are we spending enough money protecting it? Are we spending too much money protecting it? Does it really matter? So yep, got a bunch of glum faces in the room. Awesome, told you I was going to depress you. So let's move forward. Let's try and get to some things that can improve. Some quick wins. Really easy things. And there are some. And the first one is this. Awareness is the key here. You can't defend against something you don't understand. If you've heard of ransomware in the press but don't actually know what it means, there's no adequate way that you can say we're looking after this, we're protecting it, we'd be able to recover from it, it's an issue for us or it's not. And the reason that awareness is key though is because hacking people is cheaper than hacking computers. Hacking people is easier than hacking computers, and hacking people is more successful than hacking computers. And that may sound like a really odd thing given that surely this is a tech problem. It's not a tech problem. Never been a tech problem. Unless you happen to be Kevin Smith in your basement, at which point it's a tech problem, but it's not. So a really good example, and I know some people here are from local government. So we did an exercise a while back. I personally did this exercise. They said, how safe is our network for a particular Adelaide local government to being compromised? And I had a look at their head office, and it's great. Look, it's got shiny doors and it's got receptions and it's got cameras and it's got stuff, and I went, right, not interested in that. So I went out to a depot and I parked in the car park, and I got my high-vis jacket out of the boot, because I do have a high-vis jacket. And here's the cool thing about a depot. You wear a high-vis jacket, you're invisible. No one notices you. You don't wear one, it's like, hey, mate, safety first, where's your high-vis? As soon as you're wearing one, nobody takes any notice of you whatsoever. So I just wandered around till I found an office that was open. There was no one in it. I went in and had a look. Had a look at the computer, which was locked on the desk. Had a look at the paperwork and discovered that this was George's office. And then there's George's phone with a sticker on it that says, for help desk, call 888. So I picked up George's phone from his desk and went, 888. Hi, this is George from the depot. I've forgotten my password. Can you reset it for me? Absolutely, they said. No problems. Then they gave me some really bad advice on resetting a password, but they did it anyway. Then I logged into George's computer on his desk with the new password that IT had just given me. Now, it turns out George was Eastern European and had a really thick Eastern European accent. Oh, I didn't know this, but heck, nor did the IT guy, so it didn't matter. Right? Why would I bother going through this whole process of trying to find vulnerabilities in your technology when I can find vulnerabilities in your people, or find vulnerabilities in your process? This is what the bad guys are doing. This is why awareness is important, but not paranoia. Again, the sky's not falling. The world is actually quite a nice place at the moment, but we need to be aware that this absolutely happens on a daily basis. So, awareness is key. That's why we're videoing this. That's why it's going to be made available to you on your portal. Everyone needs to hear this. The second one is passwords are important. Really important. They're terrible, by the way. Passwords are like the worst way of authenticating anything, but they're the sort of least worst way of any other combination we've got. Passwords are like, right, keys in your pocket. I don't have one key. I mean, that's my car key and my post office box key, and I don't know if you know what that key is. Shed key, some other key. And they're different strengths. My car key is actually the most significantly strong one. It's got cutouts on both sides, and it's got technology in the key as well. Compared to, I don't know, my shed key, which you pretty much put a screwdriver in and get through. Passwords are like that though. I don't have the same key for every lock. I shouldn't have the same password for every system. And in fact, you should have a different password for every single system. Wait for the groan. Yep. I got about 400 systems I have access to, and I love the idea that you think my brain is smart enough to remember 400 different passwords, but it's not. I have a password manager app on my phone that stores all of my passwords, and every password I use on every system is random. I don't know what they are. I don't need to know what they are. Let's face it, if I can remember the password, somebody else might be able to guess it. The only real password with any strength is one that's completely random. So I have the password manager app generate me a random password, and then when I need to get it back, I ask the password manager app to tell me what random password I used. I can't underplay this. The reason this is really important is because passwords don't get stolen from you. They get stolen from the places you use them. So last year, there was a question about whether a site called TeamViewer was compromised. Now, TeamViewer provides software that allows you to remote control a computer. So I have TeamViewer on a PC over here, and I can connect to it from anywhere in the world using the right app with the right credentials to allow me to remote control the computer. This is used a lot. And there were a bunch of attacks that appeared to say that all these TeamViewer accounts were being used fraudulently. TeamViewer assured everyone it wasn't us, we didn't do it. They were right, they didn't do it. What had happened was 2 years before, LinkedIn had been compromised. Fairly sure everyone here has probably got a LinkedIn account. So the password on LinkedIn for everyone was stolen, me included. Now, if I used that same email address and that same password anywhere else, I've lost that too. So this is what the criminals did. They compromised LinkedIn, they got 500 million accounts or whatever it was. Then they tried every single one of those on Apple, on Facebook, on TeamViewer, on Yahoo. Anyone still got a Yahoo account? I actually got an email. I got an email from Yahoo going, by the way, your Yahoo password was compromised. I went, cool, I'd forgotten I hadn't even had an account. But everywhere. So if you use the same username, which is your email address, and password anywhere else, it gets compromised once, you've gone everywhere. Now, if you use the same username, email address, and password on LinkedIn as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, one compromise on one loses you everywhere. You've now lost control of your entire digital identity. Honest, you just got to use different passwords everywhere. You'll need to get some technology to support that. Do that. The next one, and this is probably more time to you at home than at work, is back up everything. I already sort of mentioned backup. So back up everything and then disconnect the backup drive. Otherwise, it's not a backup. Do it regularly. If you lose the photos of your kids at sport, you'll get upset about it. Remember though, it's not just criminals who can do this. I live in Adelaide Hills, right? Lightning strikes happen. Floods happen. Hard drives just die. Right, so do this for other reasons. Cyber criminals is one, but just do this for other reasons. And the last of the quick wins is really to lock down your social media. I have a slightly controversial view, which is that even if you don't want to use social media, and if you're not one of those who wants to join the biggest time suck the world has ever come up with, I think you should go create an account anyway and then not use it. So we got a call from a lawyer who said, I represent a fairly important person, and someone created a Twitter account in their name and is posting all sorts of nasty things. They said, what can we do about it? I said, build a time machine. This person was proud that they didn't use social media. I'm going to be honest, I think that's like saying, I'm proud that I don't use deodorant. It's a slightly antisocial view to take in 2017. The reason that this is important is not because I can attack you when you don't use social media, it's that I can attack your friends if you don't. So what I think this particular person should have done is I think she should have registered all these social media accounts. I think she should have publicised that these are the ones she has, but she doesn't use them. But the best way to contact is via email or phone or something else. But acknowledge that this is who I am. That way you can disclaim, no, that's not me. The way this attack works is to go, I know that you don't use social media, but I'm not interested in you, I'm interested in your boss, or your family, or your friends. And so I register an account in your name, with your photo, with enough information that I can find about you. It doesn't even have to be right, here's the cool thing. So, Paul here, who honestly I haven't spoken to since 1984, and he really didn't look like that. Imagine that Paul had sent me a Facebook friend request. I could look him up in the yearbook, which it did, and he didn't look like that. All right, it's a name, I recognise the name, but the photo doesn't match the photo, and I haven't had any contact with him for 30-something years. Is he really that Paul Feck? No, he's probably not. It's probably a fraud. But the point here is that if I click accept, I'm now sharing information with that person who may or may not be the person I think it is. So you start to ask the question, how many friends? I'm actually consciously air quoting friends here you have. For most humans, you can do name to face mapping of about 150 people, that's it. So these are people who you can see, you know the name, you know the face, you know who they are. There are a lot more people you can go, I remember the name, but I can't put a face to it. And there are a bunch more people who you can go, I remember the faces, but I just don't remember who they were. This happened to me at a train platform last week. I was sitting there going, oh, I'm fairly certain I know that person. I don't know where I know him from, but I'm not going to go, hi, I think I know you, because that seems creepy and stalkerish. So you can just imagine he's going, I'm fairly sure I know that guy, but I don't know who he is, right? There's a whole bunch of that. So if you have more than 150 friends on Facebook, for example, there are people in there who you wouldn't recognise in the street. And I'm of an age where we've just gone through the sort of 30-year high school reunions, and I have caught up with a bunch of people. And Paul said I look a lot like I did at high school, which I think is a wonderful compliment. You can keep saying things like that to me. But not everybody does. So if I'm going to attack you, I set up a profile in the name of you. I then contact your friends and send them a friend request. You don't use it. There's no chance you're ever going to detect I'm doing this. And so I become you for the purposes of this. And eventually I become you for the purpose of going, I'd like some information from these people. I'm stuck overseas and can you just send me some money because I've lost my wallet? That's a real attack. That really happens. So if you look at your Facebook profile, go to the settings for security. There are only two settings you should ever have: me only and friends. That's it. Nothing else. Not public, never friends of friends. That's might as well just say public. Me only and friends are the only two settings. And I recommend about once a year have a bit of a cull. And let's face it, if you haven't actually talked to them in a year, I can live with one less. I'll find someone new. I'll put someone new in that spot. Got to keep someone in the 150. All right, so that's tactically, that's today. That's how we can start making some quick wins. What do we have to do to make this work longer term? The first is we just need to change the way we think about security. So I'm going to say it a third time, this is not a technology problem. It's never been a technology problem. So what we need to do is we need to balance our spending. Okay, so this photo here, I took this photo. This is not a stole it from Google photo. This is the total defence that a major Australian mining company used to have against attack of their corporate systems. It's a gate with the word gate written on it, because that'll keep the bad guys out. Now these guys are a lot like that council I mentioned before. They have a vast amount of technology protecting their head office, but they can't imagine that someone would get in a white four-wheel drive and drive 6 hours out into the desert. And that's all it takes. And you get to that. And you climb over that, and you get to a building which has active network for the whole corporate network sitting there, not locked, not protected, not in any way. That will be true of every business with branch offices. The branch offices are always the weak point. So don't overspend. Don't spend your millions of dollars of protection on your head office and nothing at your branches. What's the point? The bad guys actually will go, I'll go to the weak spot. I mean, if you're doing it for marketing purposes, sure, why not? But that's not a good reason. Then don't underspend on detection. At some point, we will all be compromised. The important thing is to know when it's happened. And if you look at recent data breach disclosure information, it suggests that the time between an attack being successful and compromising a business and the time the business learns about it is 8 months. And they almost never ever learn about it from within. They don't detect it. Someone else detects it. Someone else discovers that all their information is available on Pastebin or some other website. 8 months is about the length of time that people have inside a business once they've compromised it. Because people don't look inside. They assume that IT are protecting. Remember I said IT are not protecting? They're not. IT are protecting your environment, have put up a firewall, have put antivirus, have done all these good things that are necessary, but not sufficient. And so they don't look inside. And the last bit is to spend some money on response. Right? If it happens, if the bad things occur, what are you going to do about it? Most common reaction in an Australian business is panic, followed by the 5 stages of grief. In this order. Anger. How can this be happening? This is just ridiculous. It's not possible. Then denial. It's not real. It's false. It's not us. Then bargaining. If we just did something else, maybe we can make it go away. Maybe we can make it. Then depression. What can we do? And then acceptance. We're just like everyone else. Better if you didn't have to go through the whole 5 stages of grief thing. And the reason they do it is because they don't look inside, and even if they look inside, they don't know how to respond. Then you just got to focus on people. We're all people. The information may be stored in technology, it may be moved around in technology, it may be transmitted from paper to digital, but it's fundamentally for and about people. We are both the greatest strength and the greatest weakness. We're the smartest computers the world has ever seen, yet we fall for simple scams. If you think that technology will solve your problem, then unfortunately you don't understand technology and you don't understand your problem. There are lots of people in much more expensive suits than the one I'm wearing with really shiny teeth who will come and say, absolutely, we can make you safe if you just buy our shiny. If you just install this software, you will be safe. They are lying. What will happen is they will make their quarterly targets. Now, I'm not saying technology is bad or useful or rubbish. It's not. Good technology underpins everything, but it is not sufficient. Promise you this is my last slide. So the thing we need to do is we need to move security and start dealing with it like safety. Here's something you probably haven't thought about a lot. Safety is an emotional concept. We want to feel safe. But security is an intellectual concept. We want to be secure. We do a whole bunch of odd things in the name of safety that we never do in the name of security. And so for this to be solved long term, we need to stop thinking about security as security and start thinking it as about safety. So I'm going to give you one last example. Assuming you drove here today, or you drive at any time, next time you get in your car, you are going to make 3 security decisions and you are not going to think about any of them. First thing you'll do is you're going to unlock your car. Now, you did not lock your car when you left it because you went, my car is valuable. It would be annoying if I lost my car. There are criminals in the world. I should lock my car to make sure criminals don't steal my car. We don't think that. We lock our car because you lock your car. Not because there's any imminent likelihood that your car will be stolen today or your car will be stolen from here, or you make some sort of risk assessment that says, when I go to these shops I lock my car and these shops I don't lock my car. We don't do that. We just lock the car. And we don't think about locking the car. It's just what we do. Then you get into the car and you put your seatbelt on. And again, you don't go, rationally, I haven't had an accident in 2 decades. The likelihood of me having an accident today is pretty much 0, so I'm going to save the 3 seconds it takes me to put the seatbelt on by not putting the seatbelt on because I've made a rational risk decision that I'm not going to get injured. Even though, if I do have an accident, I'm going to get impaled on the steering wheel and that's going to suck. Or worse, I'll get punched out through the windscreen and then the ambulance officer is going to have to go and search for my corpse. Nobody has this thought. You just put the seatbelt on because you put the seatbelt on. And not only that, the other people in the car go, hey, we're not driving off until you put your seatbelt on too. Not because I might get fined if I'm not wearing my seatbelt. We just do it because we just do it. Third thing we do is we indicate when we're pulling out into traffic. Hopefully. Hopefully we indicate. All right, one person doesn't indicate. We indicate we're pulling out into traffic. Again, just to let others know we're doing this thing and assuming that they're doing it. But you don't think about indicating. Now, each of these 3 things you were taught by rote when you learned to drive. And you were taught them and you were taught them and reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, and eventually they just became what we do. That's where we need to get to with security. When we get to the point that we just do it because it's the way we do things, not because someone tells us to, not because it's necessary to, not because we're going to get fined if we don't, then finally we will be making the world a safer place. So I'd like to leave that with you. Thanks for inviting me.